Welcome to Having Coffee with Cullotta. Hit that subscribe button. I have a problem saying that word. Not that I'm stupid, I just can't pronounce the word. We're up to about 86 subscribers. And I hope you enjoy what I'm doing. And there's a lot to learn from me. And now, I'm not going to be 1,000% on the money. Don't forget I'm 81 years old. You know, it's a wonder that I got this memory as I have it. So anyway, I'm ready for any questions you'd like to ask me. So let's get going. The first question I'm going to answer is from a young man. His name is Michael Spilotro. I happen to know his father real well and his uncle real well. He had a question for me. And I know he wasn't calling me a liar. I understand where he gets his information. I'm sure he don't get it from his mother because I know his father wouldn't talk to his mother about personal things. So he chases history like everybody else does. It's common. I've lived that life. I know that life. I know the characters. I don't want to offend this kid. He was just a young boy when his father passed. Anyway, he asked a question about the West Side Crew. I can answer that question easily. Joe Lombardo always belonged to Jack Cerone. Joe Lombardo was the Grand Avenue Crew. And that run from the east side to the west side. There's not much east side. So it was all west side. And it went into the suburbs. Joe started out as a crap player, shooting craps, putting money out on juice. And he was a good earner. And Joe, if you told him to do something, he would do it. Unlike, I think this kid might be referring to, Michael, to Johnny DiFronzo. There's two different people. Johnny was with Jack also. But if Jack wanted something done on the heavy level, he wouldn't go to Johnny because Johnny would have to get somebody. Joe could do it himself. That's the difference in the characters. Joe was way above Johnny as far as stature. They call him a clown. You know why. Everybody knows why. Because he liked to clown around. But he didn't like you to clown around with him. I know Joey since in the 50s. I know him when he was a startup guy, stand-up guy, and making money. And did I like him? I tolerated him. Let me put it like this. Now I'm going to tell you something else a lot of people don't know. Joey Lombardo and Tony Spilotro were made approximately the same time in the 70s. That I know. Tony was much more higher up than Joe. That I could guarantee you. With Tony's own words to my ears, because I challenged Tony on it when I was in Vegas. I said, what is it? Is it Joe bigger than you or you bigger than Joe? He said, Frankie, because I'm in Vegas and Joe's in Chicago. He's where all the guys are. He's in charge. I have to take orders from him. He said, if it was vice versa, it'd be the other way around. If we were both in Chicago, I'd be Joe's boss. And the reason why I challenged him on that, because I know Tony was with Joey Aiuppa. He was the man. And Joey loved Tony, and he loved his brother Michael. There's pictures all over to show it. So who's he going to pick, Lombardo or Tony? He's going to pick Tony. So when they made Jack Cerone the boss, because Joe retired, Tony was very upset. Because he was looking not for Jack to be the boss. Jack's a difficult guy, Jack Cerone. Now, I could tell you, I know this for a fact, from Tony's mouth to my ears. Now, you want to know who are the bosses? I'm talking to everybody now. This is what I could tell you, what I know. It's a confusing thing to most people. From 1960 to 1970 or 72, the boss was Paul Ricca. Paul the Waiter Ricca. They called him the waiter because he waited until he got you. That's what Paul. Nice guy, cheap as the son of a bitch, but a nice guy. They retired, or he retired himself. Tony Accardo. He retired himself. Now these characters I mentioned, these last names, these guys are from Al Capone era. The old 42 gang, Taylor Street. And they were with Al Capone. So when he died of cancer. I think somewhere in 72 or whatever it was. But Tony was already placed in Vegas in 1972. You got that? Don't get confused, because sometimes I get confused. Because don't forget, there's a lot of people involved in my life. So that's when Jack Cerone became the boss. Now, we go back to Milwaukee Phil. Do I know Milwaukee Phil yet? He was a nut. Tony was nervous around him. Tony told me, when this guy talks, Frankie, he fucking growls. He says, but I got to listen to him. He says, he's my boss. Now, Tony started out. I could tell you how Tony got right to the top. Tony started hanging around a guy by the name of Saint. Vincent and Cerone. We call him Saint. Saint used to be Joey Aiuppa's personal driver. Personal driver. Tony hooked up with Saint. Turk. Turk was involved. James Torello. We call him Turk. I stole with Turk. I know Turk. I didn't know his wife. I know who she was, Doodles. But it's not my business to be her friend. He's my friend, not his wife. Not Tony's wife. Hello, goodbye, I'll see you later. That's the way I treated her. If you want to come on in and wait for him, have coffee. I'll sit in the car. You never know what these broads will say. All right? So now you're getting the right story. So when Phil dies, I think Tony was sort of relieved to get rid of this guy. The guy was nuts. He was a mean man. So then they put Tony in Vegas. And you know what his functions were. I'll get to that another time. But that's basically the tree. Now you had Teets Battaglia, you had Joe Ferriola, you had many guys that were made men. I don't call them made. We never referred to them as made guys. That's the terminology they use in New York. We used to call them stashes. He's a stash. I mean, higher upper. That's the terms we use. These guys weren't the kind of guys you wanted to play with, tease with. They were very temperamental people. And I was very temperamental myself. I didn't like nicknames. You think you could call Tony the Ant? He'd be dead if you call him the Ant. You think you could call Joey the Clown? Like you've seen in the movie, you think that's funny? He'd show you how funny he was. You don't play like that. You talk behind their back, you use that terms. That's the way it was. And if they heard it, from somebody, hey, he called you the clown, they might approach you and say, do I look like a clown? Just like the movie. I'm telling you, okay? I hope this is helpful to all y'all. Now I'm going to wrap it up a little bit here. Press that button, that subscribe button. If you don't press it, I'm going to break your freaking thumb. You got it? And I'll talk to you again. Having coffee with me, Frank Cullotta. Enjoy.